Okay, November 11th, 1918. I must tell you how to end a war, and it's only I that knows the right way. November 11th, 1918, there was a captain, and his name was Captain Harry Truman. And there was a young man that was up the hill from him as he was in the midst of the throes of the war. And this young man had oversight over Battery D with Harry Truman, who was captain. He was a secretary. So on November 11, 1918, he had these 4 big French artillery guns, and he was getting them ready to shoot at the enemy. And he has a runner come up and say, Captain Truman, Captain Harry Truman, wants to see you. The young man's name was Edward P. Meisberger. He ran down and he came to this place where the tent of Captain Truman was. And he ran inside and he stood at attention, and Captain Truman was eating a blueberry pie. And this is at breakfast time. And he's thinking, where did he get that blueberry pie? And he's got a big old smile on his face. And he said, Secretary, who was in charge again of the troops for him, he said, Secretary Meisberger, please take this message to the troops. It was the armistice message that said the war is over, this date and this time. And he ran with tremendous excitement up that hill, announced it to the troops, and went down the valley to the other troops. And the war had ended, November 11th, 1918. That man was my grandfather, Edward P. Meisberger. He's gone on to be with the Lord. But he had a legacy and an inheritance for us Hartleys and Meisbergers to help end wars. Legacy and inheritance is really missed in this hour. And my grandfather, I wish I would have paid more attention to who he was throughout his life and his history, because it was amazing. He was one of Harry Truman's best friends, the 3 best friends, and the last picture in the Harry Truman library is with my grandfather. And he's got his arm around him and he's giving him a watch, and there's a whole back room with Edward P. Meisberger stuff. I underestimated the power of legacy. And I remember as a teenager, I was starting to go off the rails, and we always would have Thanksgiving at his house with my grandmother. And he would have a little vodka hidden in the bushes out front and around the side, pull it out. And so when he was carving that turkey with the electric knife, he calls me over and he says, Bobby, if you find a finger in that food, give it back to me. It's mine. But then I got into some trouble as a teenager, and he said, Bobby, you pin your problems to the mat. He wrote me a beautiful, he was a writer. He helped lead the Kansas City Post, which turned into the Kansas City Star. And he just wrote me this beautiful reality about how I pin my problems to the mat, and I would be a great man through my life. And he said, you'll have challenges, but don't ever let go of who you are. And he said, don't ever get disappointed in yourself. He said, because the world needs who you are, Hartley the Heart. And then my father was in World War II, and he was a machine gunner, and he was saved by 2 Polish men that he was shooting in the snow, and he got disoriented, and they got a hold of his feet and pulled him back in the snow, and one hand on each boot. And my father said the same thing to me, the inheritance. He said, Bobby, you're going to be a great storyteller, touch a lot of lives. And he said, you'll be a great man, not knowing what my grandfather had said. And it's not about greatness according to the world standards. It's greatness in the heart. And he said, don't lose your heart, son. And I said, I know you won't. He said, you'll blunder at times because I did, and you can be impetuous. And he said, but if you get mean in life, he said, you've gotten bitter versus better. We're going to go to the sweet stick. Get a hold of sweet stick. It was really a stick in our family that I held. He gave me that was like the sweet stick of Morah, where Moses threw the log in, or the stick, and the bitter waters became sweet. So how do we win the war? It's the end of the war, World War I. It's prophetic for us. Everybody's fighting with everybody. Everybody's kicking the neighbor's dog. Neighbor's dog's barking at them, never did before. There's just a spirit in the air. And it's just a small fraction of reality. And it's coming through the loud voices like on Mars Hill, and where they went to hear everything new and they got all messed up because of the way things were interpreted. Because you don't listen to anything unless it comes through love. It says you can only discern when you're bound in love. So my mom and dad and my grandparents, they want to give us a history. They hated war. And my grandfather said, war is a horrible thing, Bobby. Even though he knew Truman, met each other there, or a little before that. They lived in the same city here in Kansas City. But both my dad and he said, we have an inheritance and legacy, not to start wars, but to end wars. And so they gave me examples, and I want to give you these practical examples and ways to win the war that's being fought now, and we will win by the grace of God. But it's a fact. It's easy. But I just want to say this about inheritance and legacy. I had my son, and Luke Hendrickson, who's just grown to be a great man, renowned man at Bethel, leading the music and a lot of things. But we went to speak to the group, the senior group at Bethel, Diamonds Group. And there's several hundred of them, and they're over 60s, 70s. And they're praying and they're fighting for the youth, the children's inheritance. And I had my son come up, and Luke, before I spoke, because I said, you guys address them, honor them, value them. And because a lot of times elderly people are just thrown into brick buildings and forgotten, are not seen with what they have to offer. And they all have a story to tell and much for us to learn from them. So my son and Luke did something that stunned me, gripped me to this day. And I encourage you just to let your mind muse on this. Those things that are good. What they did was say, your inheritance is more important than ours. And they said, if you don't get your inheritance and you just keep praying for ours, we won't get ours because it comes through you. And we want you to not be like Esau that gives up their birthright or inheritance. And they weren't being mean to him at all, but they're saying, don't abdicate. Fight for everything you're to get, so we'll get everything we're to get. In the sense of good, God, hope, friendships, real things. And said, so they got down on their knees and they prayed for the people, and then they walked around, prayed for them. And the people wept, just nobody. And I had looked at them for a long time, and they had a story to tell. They had something to impart. So I've thought about that because my sister-in-law, Marietta, has done an amazing job, and my Aunt Irene and others of just helping us to remember our legacy. My older brother, who visits my mom and dad's, they grave their remembrance. He's not morbid or heavy. He just doesn't want them just to go down on the ground and be buried and be forgotten. So it's just not what you do. In the Bible, they spent 70 days mourning Jacob. And it was a real deal, just meditating on his importation into their lives, the value of it. And so just let me tell you a little of my inheritance and legacy, and consider this as I appropriate it. Consider it for you guys, okay? All right, how to end the war. Bob Hartley. I'm the only one that has a solution. No. So, first thing is just my mom and dad, when I was young, they fought for fair housing. And so I grew up in an Irish, Italian, Catholic neighborhood. I'm half dark Irish. So, and I got an inheritance through that. So, from a Celtic background. So I, my parents talk about my dad's an inner city principal and how, we got to do this right. We got to integrate communities. And there was a lot of fear of what was different in our neighborhood. So when we went and put flyers on people's door for fair housing, I was screamed at by people that had known me I lived in that neighborhood from 2 to almost 15, or then little Bobby Hartley, get out of here. They were upset. And so my brothers and sisters and my parents, so, I came back, and like most of us, that Leviathan grabs your heart where you want to get bitter because of what they said. And my dad wouldn't allow that. And he said, and he was getting hit the worst. And he said, I got a solution. And I said, we go set their houses on fire. We go and we take the trash when they put it out, and then we dump it in their cars. I had solutions. And I said, we fill their gas tanks up with water. I had solutions. And so anyhow, but he said, my dad, he said, let's do ding dong blessing. So what we did, and it was astounding because my heart wasn't into it at first, is we got gifts that were beautiful, and we didn't have a lot of money, but they spent what they had, and we put baskets on the people's doorsteps that had not been happy with us. And he wrote a tremendous poem. I'll post it sometime about the love and the connection of our neighborhood and the step. And it was just really gentle and not pushy. And it was a ding dong blessing. And we ding dong them and run, and they'd come out and they'd get the blessing. And then we'd get calls. And it just was something that started to win the war between what we have now. We have people that don't understand each other, and we got generations that don't, and there's this forgetting of core memories and heart and appreciation, and we have to restore that, or we're going to fight fire with fire. And there's a miracle when we get to know God, and he can do it through anybody that will submit themselves to this. He can have this marvelous love. It's the greatest miracle of all, John 11, and I'll explain that some other time. But second thing is, so I say ding dong blessing, practical number one, how to end the war. You can send it to places. I have a lot of people to bless because over these last 4 or 5 years, I've had stress, and I had my heart give out and my body give out. You get real black and white. Plus, I had a brain injury. I'm not messed up, but I just have to know when I go into stress that, through all my athletics with wrestling, and then I did stuntman stuff, and then I did just some car wrecks, went through a windshield of a bus, or I hit a bus, and so it just, like my little brother got my head hit, and so they said you'll forget priorities like children's birthdays. They said executive function's going to be hard for you, packing bags and stuff. And they said, and you kind of go into a zone where I was doing Trump tweets, and I'm for the man. I just don't like the rhetoric, so at times, and that's just the way it is, and I wouldn't even remember. And so I just have somebody that helps me with behavior so that I don't repeat that. So I just want to be real honest with you. But doesn't make me deficient, it makes me more sensitive to when I'm out of the spirit. I can tell I'm not happy, I'm stressed now, and I'm about to say things that I don't want to say, push people. And so, but when I was in college, the second practical tool was Howdy Week. And when I was in college, it was during the times of the uprising. I was a little later in, Kent State and all that, but there was still this aftermath where the blacks and the whites didn't get along. The Greeks and the independents didn't get along. A lot of groups, people that were from other nations, Americans, and it was really real. There was different dorms. Levenger was the president, and he ran the third strictest university in the United States, and it was a public one. It wasn't a military one or anything. It had a curfew like 9:30, and so there was this lot of bubbling resentment. So the new president, he got actually taken out by the state or whoever, and so the new president comes in, and I was running a number of organizations. And one of them I was running was called the Student Relations Council that he really honestly asked me to start. So there was about 120 students, and we'd get together, talk about how to bring peace because there was uprising starting to happen. And I said, let's do Howdy Week. So I just had that spur thought. And so they said, what are you talking about? I had a TV show at the university. And so I started announcing, but I told them, we'll say howdy to each other. That's it, howdy. And I said, if you say howdy to the right person, you'll win a prize. We'll give them to a number of the students. So the next month, I'm announcing it on the TV show, and then we got tons of prizes and gifts from the community. And we got cars, we got, it was really amazing what they donated. And they all wanted this peace and pizzas, which we lived and died for. But Howdy Week started. And the first day, you could hear barely howdy, howdy, howdy. And then the second day, so I thought this is going to flop. The next day, more howdies. Third day, howdy, howdy, howdy. Fourth day, people are sitting in groups that you would never believe would sit together. Fifth day, they're starting to eat meals, and the complexion of our university changed. I was named an outstanding graduate. None of that's important. The point was it was just a matter of reality that we became just through howdy. And I want to tell you one thing that happened to me was, people would say howdy to me a lot because they think I helped start the program, so I had to have gifts, which I didn't. And so this one man ran up, I'll say his first name, Jeff, and we were trying to date the same girl, beautiful. And we'd always, in sports, compete for, had an outstanding intramural athlete and this and that. So, side of the wrestling. And he came up to me and he said, howdy. And we didn't talk. And so I thought he's just trying to get something. So I say howdy back to him. He hands me a gift receipt or a gift card for $50 for a local restaurant there. That's gold, $50 at that time. And that was one of our highest gifts. And he had it. And he knew I would have to respond, say howdy. And he set me up so that I could get the gift. I'll tell you, I thought about that for days, and I just didn't want to go to war with him or his fraternity. From our fraternity, we were wrestlers. We called them pretty boys, and that changed. So it's amazing. So Howdy Week. Call people that you haven't said howdy for a while. Or write them. And I know it's energy, and I know for me, I just pray that people I don't see know I'm saying howdy. And I really care about them. Third thing is we get a church, and I'm with Mike Bickle, And Bob Scott at that time, Dennis Brown, it's only 4 of us on staff. And the church grows to, I think, 3,500 in about 18 months. Grows fast. And I have a bunch of youth and young adults, but there's a lot of different cultures that have come in. They're all charismatic, Pentecostal, and, Baptist, Catholic, then nothings, people, university professors and others, not nothings, but just in this place of they didn't identify with the group. And they all responded to the message, an opening up of a healed and expanded view of Jesus, but they weren't responding to one another. And so Martha Stevens, who's gone on to be with the Lord, and I asked Mike, I said, let me do an activity that brings them together. So he said, okay, you be in charge of family life activities. And I said, well, it'll be everybody, young adults and all that. He said, do it. Just don't make it cost a lot of money. So I said, okay. So what we did, and he allowed me to share, and allowed me to own it to the church and build a little momentum. We took on a Sunday, everybody in the church, and we broke them down into what we call prayers and dinners for 6. And we put 6 people together that didn't know each other and were from different places of life. And we put them together, and 80% of the people went from the church. And they had the best time, and we gave them 3 questions. Tell something joyful or humorous from your past, and then tell them about your past. Tell them something joyful or humorous or appreciative from the present, and do the same thing for the future. And I said, it would go 5-10 minutes. Well, of course, they end up spend a lot longer with each other. And those are friendships that happened 30 years ago or 20, whatever, but those friendships are around to today. And it was so simple, and we do it now every month. And the momentum maintained, and the love was shared. And so I'm giving you 3 things to consider. Like having prayer and dinners, like the Frasers are having. I'm so proud of them. They live across the street, Bob and Lauren Fraser, and I've been resting and getting better, trying to get the business to settle down. And they're having a women's retreat this weekend, but all the men can come. And I love that. And they have this influent church where they invite people that kind of are marketplace people that feel like they're just of no value in the church. They feel like they just throw a check over the wall. Well, they're inviting them in. They're building a bridge to churches. And I just know it's a lot of energy. And I'm just so proud to be their friend. And I'll be there at the women's conference this weekend. But also, just in closing, when I was in wrestling, I just want to give you an example of spontaneous. How do we win the war? And I'm talking about this is the wisdom ways of God for our blueprint. And that's where we're at in the Yellow House journey. Wisdom for the blueprint. Make this part of your blueprint. Is 1, do like Jacob did with Esau, ding dong ditch, blessing, give a gift. 2, do howdy week. And that's just where it says be kind and show brotherly love for one another and affection. And it just is believe the best before the worst and say howdy to different people. And it says greet one another with a holy hug and kiss. Well, it's everybody. Human beings deserve it. They deserve the warmth. Look at them like you do your baby with delight. See what happens. And you're excited to see them coming. And then prayers and dinners for 6, Acts 2:42. They went house to house breaking bread and fellowshipping. And so they grew in love for one another. Apply one of these 3 practices. And then 4th, be spontaneous in affection and appreciation. So 10 years ago, no longer than that, I'm sorry. I'm wrestling. After you wrestle high school, college, there's what's called freestyle tournaments. And so I'm wrestling, and it might have been while I was in college during the summer. But anyhow, I'm wrestling the number 2 man in the nation. And my friend Joe Thomas has wrestled him and lost to him, but Joe was as good as me. But Joe was my coach, and so from the sideline, he coached me, and I won 22-0. And he hadn't been defeated for a long time, and so. But it was very demoralizing to him, and Joe just knew what for me to do, you know. And I was happy, but I wasn't. I was sad because this is a great man, and he just happened to, you know, once I got ahead, he tried things that didn't work and put himself in a bad position. They didn't have. They stop it now when you're ahead 8-0 or 10, and so that night celebrating with friends, and this man walks up. He said, "Heard you beat Lance Shope," and I said, "Yeah, I did great. You know, I did real good." And he said, "Well, you think you could whip about anybody now?" And I could see he was getting aggressive, and he was a lot bigger than me and stronger. And I said, I got up from the tailgate of this pickup because we're all just sitting out in a restaurant parking lot where we'd hang out. And I said, "No, I don't think I'm." And the guy popped me, knocked me out. His name Bobby. Boy, I won't. It'd be okay. But he was a Golden Gloves champion. He was first in state wrestler, and he was about 6 years older than me, and just knocked me silly. Well, I get so bitter and angry, and I hold it in, but I don't do anything. I don't go after him. I try to. He had a bar, and I try to go there and find him, and good thing I didn't, you know, but I just wasn't gonna, you know, stand up for myself. It wouldn't have lasted too long. But so a few years go by, and I'm driving on Blue Ridge Road. That's close to the church, but I'm not in church or nothing. I just happen to grow up in the area. And I see somebody walking on the side of the road, and they're teetering. It's about 9 or 10 at night, and they fall over, and I stop and I pick them up, and it's Lance. And he's really thin, and he's gotten sick on himself. And I don't think he remembered me. And I just cleaned him up real good, take him, find out where he lived, cleaned him up when he got there, you know, just made sure he was all right, left some money and some food, and then left. You know, I was at his parents', but he was kind of staying in a little mother-in-law's quarters. But so I go back to that bar later again, this years later, to find this. I couldn't get over it. This Bobby boy who had hit me. And I walk in, and he walks right through the crowd. They kind of part. I think, here we go. And he shakes my hand, and he said, "You're Bob Hartley?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You helped my friend, Lance Shope." And I said, "If you help my friend, you're always a friend to me." And it was a supernatural, touching thing that was really deep, you know. Lance Shope ended up marrying one of, just one of the gals at our church, you know, and then he ended up not living too long with the difficulties in life. And I just thought, well, I felt like the Lord said, you got to be kind to him along his journey. And he didn't experience that all the time. So I just say be spontaneous and being kind and appreciation. And I haven't told many of this because you have secrets that you just love to keep between you and the Lord. But I just felt like it was important that you're going to come up on some people that might be drunk and aggressive with just what's going on in the world and intoxicated. You're going to look past it. You're going to love them. So remember, love secures a heart, but hope advances a heart. So advance today. Love and God and feeling love can keep us in our own little bubble. where we feel best loved. But where does he feel best loved? Let's go into war and go love him out there. God bless you guys. Okay, thank you. Please, please pass this on as I'm getting out of Facebook prison and others. It really has limited my ability to reach people. And I'm going to have some very, very important things. I'm going to really teach how to adore, how to send in prayer. And I'm go through the whole prophetic history, but teach also how to prophesy. And then I'm going to go through the Yellow House journey and show the different faces of God. And I'm going to do it step by step. I haven't had the team to be able to get that done, which is, I have had a lot of people volunteer, but I just haven't had the energy to be a good manager. So there's some that are coming like Proverbs 6, ants having no chief or ruler. They really are able to do a portion of these things, like get new Facebook pages set up. So I tell everybody about the transition, and we'll be posting to the new pages and YouTube. We're going to really work on that channel. And I think it's Hope Bob Hartley. If everybody knows what YouTube is, and barely told anybody about it, but I have a lot of good stuff on there. Really good. Some of the things that I did when I was really tired, we're going to delete and we're going to clean up and redo. I love you all. I love you, Kathy, Joe, Jacqueline, Yolanda. I see you up there. Debbie Love Munyon, I miss you so much. And just whoever I can't see, just thank you for being on this. Thank you for being with me. Ruth, I love you. So Ruth sends me just awesome heart stuff every day. So Carly Ann, oh man, that made my day. I love you. Send me a song you singing. Okay, God bless you guys. Please pass this on. And this personal page I think this is on will be a lot of just awesome stories and the romance of the Corkies with 2 dogs. It'll be fun. And other stuff that'll be fun. This will be Jonathan Winters times 10. Okay, love you. Bye-bye.